Welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining us today for this information on the Alinvest Verde program and its second call for proposal. My name is Nicoletta Favaretto, and I'm Senior Project Officer at Eurochambres, the European Association of European Chambers of Commerce and Industry based in Brussels. Today, at this information session, we have a very rich agenda. We have Christiane Beck with us, Director for International Donor at SEQA, Coordinator of the Alinvest Verde Program Component 1. She will join me for the welcome remarks. Then Irene Haddad, Team Leader, and Frank Summa, Project Director at SEQA, will give an overview of the program and an overview also of the evaluation results of the first call for proposal. We will then dive into the second call for proposal of the Alinvest program, its priorities, indicators, and guidelines. And we will provide you also with practical details and information on how to complete the log frame and the budget documents. Also, we will have a dedicated session on mistakes to avoid at the time of applying. And lastly, a question and answer session. And for this, I invite you to use the question and answer box that you will find on the bottom of your screen. It is a pleasure for me to moderate and open the session today on behalf of Eurochambres. Our association represents 45 members, 43 national chambers of commerce and industry, and 2 transnational organizations. And via this member, we represent over 20 million enterprises across Europe, reaching to a network of 1,700 regional and local chambers of commerce and industry in Europe. Eurochambres has been involved in the implementation of EU-financed action in Latin America for over 15 years. Programs such as Alinvest Verde, Alinvest, Centro America Exporta, ELAN Network, the Latin America Intellectual Property SME Helpdesk. These projects focus on bi-regional economic partnership, internationalization, and innovation. And for this, we are also honored to be part of the implementing consortium of the new edition of the Alinvest Verde. It represents really several opportunities: the opportunity to boost and to support the sustainable growth and job creation in the region, the opportunity to boost the bi-regional relationship, so important these days, by building alliances in the field of green economy, and also the opportunity to mobilize the EU private sector know-how and expertise in support of the green transition of Latin America micro and small medium-sized enterprises. Without further ado, I give now the floor to Christiane Beck, SEQA. Christiane, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nicoletta. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining this information session. It's a pleasure for me to be here addressing some welcoming remarks to all of you. On behalf of SEQA, my name is Christiane Beck. I'm the head of international donors at SEQA. SEQA is the development agency of the German private sector. We have been founded in 1991, and since then we have implemented more than 1,000 projects together with our partners from the private sector in Germany and all over the world. It is our great pleasure and honor to be leading this consortium of Component 1 of Alinvest Verde, and it is even a greater pleasure to now have the second call for proposals running. The second call for proposals, of course, you all want to know the details of this, but I would also like to give you a bit of a historic background where this Alinvest Verde is coming from. Alinvest Verde always had the objective to promote the SMEs in Latin America, but nonetheless, the focus shifted over the last 28 years. It is a long historic program, I think one of the longest one of the European Commission. SEQA has been associated, I think, since the second edition of Alinvest and is happy to have been a long way with many of our partners since then. Alinvest Verde now in the latest edition is not Alinvest 6, as anybody could assume, but it is Alinvest Verde, which clearly shows the emphasis of this program, we are looking at green transition. The objective of Alinvest Verde is to promote sustainable growth and job creation in Latin America. And we want to encourage SMEs in Latin America to adopt greener technologies. Our component 1, which is led by SEQA and its partners, aims to manage the funds to finance projects arising from partnerships between EU and Latin America. So we are looking at institutions, think tanks, and business organizations in particular in Latin America and the EU who would like to join hands to strive for the common objective of a green transition. This transition can be financed by grants from component 1. We are almost across the entire region of Latin America, and we are really looking forward to receiving great ideas from you and your partners with regards to the green transition. Can you put the next slide? I will now hand over to not only my colleagues from other consortium partners, but specifically to my colleague Frank Summer from SEQA, who is the project director here at SEQA and who is having the main responsibility of implementing and managing the implementation of component 1 of Alinvest Verde. So I would really like to encourage all of you to invest into great ideas and to come over with great proposals, because I'm sure there are plenty of good ideas floating around, and this call for proposals offers the great opportunity to fund your ideas. So we are really looking forward to receiving your ideas. Frank, now the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nicoletta and Christiane, for these welcoming words for the introduction. So I continue with this short introductory presentation. Christiane already mentioned what SEQA is, but let me introduce as well our other consortium partners, as we are in total a consortium composed of 7 institutions. So from the EU, our host for today is Eurochambres, and which is the only European partner in this consortium. And the remaining 5 partners are all from Latin America. It's from Guatemala, the AGEXPORT, the Guatemalan Exporters Association. From Brazil, the Confederation of Trade and Business Associations, CACB. CAINCO, the Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Services and Tourism of Santa Cruz de la Sierra in Bolivia. From Peru, the Lima Chamber of Commerce, and from Mexico, the Employers Confederation of the Mexican Republic, Coparmex Jalisco. We also have a number of associates in different program countries, and they can be seen below the line in the slide. Although we represent Alinvest Verde today, if you look at it closely, we only represent component 1, but the program consists in total of 3 components. So our colleagues from component 2 work with public institutions in the region that deals, and this component deals with policy advocacy for the effective implementation of core environmental and labor standards, and is being implemented by a consortium of member states formed by FIAP from Spain and ILA from Italy. And the component 3 is implemented directly by the EU Intellectual Property Office, EUIPO, and it manages intellectual property rights. So the objectives of our component 1 are twofold. It's to promote, on the one hand, sustainable growth and job creation by supporting the transition to a low-carbon, resource-efficient and more circular economy in Latin America, and on the other hand, to encourage SMEs in Latin America to adopt cleaner and more sustainable processes and practices as a key element of their competitiveness. In the end, the idea is to turn climate and environmental challenges into business opportunities for SMEs. Let me summarize some key facts about the program. In total, it has a duration of 60 months. We started implementing the program or our component in December 2021, and it lasts until November 2026. with a total budget of our component of 31.25 million euro. And the implementation methodology in our component is twofold. So on the one hand, together with our consortium partners, we are implementing direct activities to contribute to the program indicators. However, a large part of the work in the consortium is the launching of calls for proposals, such as this one, the second one, where business organizations can submit their projects. And then afterwards, of course, the evaluation, the contracting, and above all, the monitoring of the implemented projects. And these contracted projects, we call them partnership projects, they also contribute strongly to the achievement of the program indicators. In the end, it's like a pyramid. We all contribute to reaching the overall indicators in our program. And on the one hand, via direct implementation from our consortium and from the implementation from the partnership projects. And as up to 80% of the eligible costs of the above mentioned budget are financed by the EU. So the total funding of the EU for our component is 25 million euro. The first call, as most of you know, took place in last year. And during this process, we received 136 proposals from across the region. And we are very happy that we received proposals from each of the 18 eligible countries. And after our evaluation, we finally contracted 24 projects that are currently running. And for the implementation of these projects, just over 7 million euro as EU contribution have been earmarked. So the projects are currently being implemented in the following 11 Latin American countries. And we are here only counting those projects where the main activities take place. This is why Guatemala, for example, is not appearing, although activities in one project are also carried out in this country. So currently, we're implementing projects in Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Colombia, Costa Rica, Chile, Ecuador, El Salvador, Honduras, Peru, and Uruguay. And EU institutions are currently involved from the following countries: from Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. And these 24 projects are implemented by business organizations such as bilateral chambers, industrial chambers, foundations, NGOs from Latin America, but also from the European Union. And on the slide, you can see the logos of the coordinators. That means the leaders of the consortia implementing the projects. But since each, since each project has to be implemented by at least 2 institutions, one from Latin America and one from the European Union, we have in total about 66 individual institutions that in different cases appear in different consortia, in different roles, of course. So, and these organizations are committed to the development of green economy in the respective Latin American countries, and thus, among others, to the creation of sustainable jobs, so to be in line with our overall objective. As in the case of this second call for proposals, the partnership projects that are currently running focus on 2 thematic areas. The first seeks the implementation of sustainable agri-food systems and value chains without deforestation. And the second is geared towards the transition of low-carbon, resource-efficient, and circular business models. So you see the subjects of this second call are very similar to the subject from the first call for proposals. So in total, there is a wide variety of subjects in these 24 projects. So we have agricultural projects in the field of beekeeping, wine growing, avocado cultivation, coffee, and much more, up to plastic prevention projects, innovative approaches for the textile industry, reduction of packaging waste in the electricity industry, and many other innovative projects in the sustainable strengthening of the private sector. So, well, here I end with my short introduction, and I wish you all that this workshop today will be fruitful and answer already many questions that I'm sure exist on your side. Now we will continue with the details of the second call. Together with my colleague Irene Haddad, the team leader of our component, we will provide you with some more details. Thanks and see you in a minute.
Thank you very much, Frank. Thank you very much, Cristiane and Nicoletta too. Good morning, Europe, and thank you very much for being here and for your interest in the second call of projects. In the following presentations, we will provide practical information for you to apply for the second call of the program. I will tell you about the application requirements and how to apply. Secondly, Frank, the program director, will discuss indicators, logical framework, and indicative action plan. Then I will guide you about budget formulation. After that, Nicoletta will intervene again to comment on the do's and don'ts of applying. And finally, I will quickly show you our website and where to find all the information we will show now. If you have questions related to what we will be presenting now, you can post them in the chat. For all those questions that we cannot answer at the end of this session, you can send them to us by email through a form available on our website. First things you should know when applying is that you will find all information you need to use on our website. You can also know more about the program surfing at our website and social networks and be informed about this call for proposal too. Let us start with some practical information. Proposal for this call must fall within one of the two thematic lots shown below. Lot 1 is sustainable and deforestation-free value chains in the agri-food industry. Partnership project should present and integrate a comprehensive approach, including different actions such as digital geolocalization solution, trainings and capacity building of SMEs on the requirements of the EU deforestation regulation, and promoting certifications and incentives for inclusive and sustainable agri-food value chains, among others. Lot 2 is transition to circular, resource-efficient and low-carbon business models. Projects should promote sustainable economic practices, such as the use of clean energy sources, waste management, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, among others. Let us now review some critical requirements of the second call. You must present innovative and comprehensive project, not one-off actions, with an overall multiplier effect among other SMEs and productive units, which are the final beneficiaries. The direction of the project should be between 18 and 70 months. The project should be executed in a Latin American country. You can also execute a multi-country project, but in this case, you have to choose a main country of execution. The call deadline is August 23rd, before midnight German time. The amount of the EU funding for each project is between 200,000 and 300,000 euros. This fund represents the 50 to 80% of the total budget. For example, you can apply with a project of 375,000 euros and claim for the maximum financing for the program. That means 300,000 euros, which means the 80% of the total budget. Therefore, you should finance the other 20%, that will be 75,000. This balance, let's say the difference between the total cost of the action and the amount requested from the program, must be financed from source other than the general budget of the European Union or the European Development Fund. Let's talk about some requirements, mandatory requirements. Each project must be submitted by a partnership between at least one Latin American institution and one institution from the European Union, one of them being defined as lead or main applicant and the other as co-applicant. You should be a legal entity established in the EU or Latin America country. To apply as leader, the following criteria must be met. Be a non-profit legal entity, be established in one of the eligible countries in Latin America or in European Union state member, identify itself as a eligible institution representing the private sector or as a research institution. Some example of applicants can be Chamber of Commerce, B or multilateral chambers, sector-specific trades, industrial and professional associations, non-profit organizations working with the private sector, sectoral agencies working with SMEs, research centers or think tanks, and other organizations focused on innovation, digitalization, or transition to a green economy can also participate. Please know that this call is aimed at the business support organization for the benefit of SMEs. That means SMEs and for-profit entities cannot apply. They are considered as the final beneficiaries of this call for proposal. Public organizations can apply as co-applicants. European binational chamber based in Latin America are considered as European party. International organizations can apply as a third partner. You need one organization from Latin America and one from the European Union. Anyways, natural persons are not eligible to apply. Each institution can apply once as applicant and several times as co-applicant. The amount in charge of the program must not exceed 300,000 euros per institution in the entire program. We will award a maximum of 3 projects per lot per country. This means a maximum of 6 projects per country in this call. The following is a review of the submission process. Check all key documentation, guidelines and formats on our website. Identify at least one partner from Latin America to present the project. If you don't have a partner, you can register on the platform B2Match. This is optional. You will find access throughout the website. I will show you later on. Decide which lot you will participate in. Download the documents to be completed and fill them in. Submit your proposal. It is only the leader of the proposal who should apply. The deadline for the submission of proposal is 23rd August before midnight German time. As previously mentioned, in order to find a partner to jointly present the project, the B2Match platform is at your disposal. The platform allows contacting people from different institutions and organizing meetings. Please create your profile in the time to make it easier for others to find you. And know that only one person per organization will be accepted. Individuals or for-profit companies are not eligible to register in this platform. In order to apply, the following step must be followed. First, go to our website, then identify the component 1 section, and there you will find the submenu second call. In the submenu second call, you will find the necessary information and application requirements. In the same submenu, you will find the application documents. You must download them, fill them in, sign them, and attach the requested supporting information. In the same submenu, you will find the application form. Click on it to fill in it with all the required information. Finally, upload the requested documents to the form. You must enter your details and attach supporting documents and required information. Key dates: you can request clarification or ask questions until August 2nd. The last day we will give answers is August 12th. Deadline to apply is August 23rd, as I already mentioned, before midnight German time. Expected date to notify the result, it's from the end of November, and expected date for signing contracts is January or February next year. So I will stop here and I will give the floor to Frank again.
Yes, thank you. Hello again. The next part will be on the logical framework and the indicative action plan. So let me give you some brief details about these two issues and how best to complete these two documents. So in this slide, we briefly remind you of the log frame of the All-Invest Verde program of our component, as it can be found in chapter 126, expected results of the guidelines for applicants. The indicators are composed of 2 indicators associated to the specific objective, plus 2 outputs with 6 indicators each. The indicators marked in green are especially important, as out of these 5 indicators below, you have to target at least 3 of them. So we are therefore calling them priority indicators in the following. The 2 specific objective indicators will have to be targeted in any case. So in the end, you have at least 5 indicators for which to propose values in your concrete proposal. So the first specific objective indicator is indicator OE11. So the OE comes from the Spanish version, where specific objective is objetivo específico, but we would like to keep the nomenclature. That's why we'll keep these OE as well. So this refers to the number of MSMEs adopting sustainable and digitized economic practices. Certain actions that will be or could be considered are, for example, efficiency in processes, energy, distribution, logistics, the sorting and reuse of waste, redesign of processes or services, and incorporation of new raw materials, input packaging, among others, in the process. So different possibilities, of course, and for the OE12 objective, specific objective 1.2, this refers to the number of full-time green and digital jobs that have been created, maintained, or reoriented in the beneficiary SMEs. So it's not only about creating new jobs, but also on maintaining jobs, or if employees are reoriented and have now new working fields that are that apply to this call for, or that are in the framework of green and digital transition, working in such working field. So the first of the priority indicators is 1.2, the number of MSMEs that obtain sustainability standards and or certification, such as good manufacturing practices. Could be also organic certification or others. These may include national certifications issued by a certifying company or public or private bodies, but also the implementation and introduction of sustainable standards. So it's not meant to realize a fully fledged ISO certification, which in any case would not be realistic with the time and budget available. Then the second of the priority indicators is 1.3. It's the number of MSMEs reporting increased turnover as a direct result of support received by the project. By the program. So the number of MSMEs that have increased sales and generated new business within the local, national, or international market, for example. And here permanent follow-up of SMEs is needed. It's not necessary to wait, for example, with this indicator until the very end of the project to get the data, because this is evolving normally over the project duration and could thus be followed up regularly. The third of the priority indicators, 1.4, is the number of MSMEs that report savings in resource usage, taking into consideration greenhouse gas or resource savings. So here one can imagine a product, for example, that was produced with less input, raw material, for the same output, namely that product. So recycling is part of it, for example, reutilization of wastewater for irrigation or others. The fourth is 2.3, the number of MSME staff with increased knowledge in access to finance. This could involve training about how to access a credit or how to write a business plan, which sources of financing could be used for greening, digitizing certain activities, which taxes could be exempted when greening the enterprise, etc. And yeah, many more. And the fifth of these priority indicators, 2.6, is the number of bankable projects developed by MSMEs through business membership organizations. So you as BMOs know your members and support them in developing more sustainable green and digital projects, activities, services, etc. In particular, through the cooperation and a memorandum of understanding with public and finance institutions, BMOs will be able to foster MSMEs in developing and upscaling best practices and orientate the formulation of projects to apply for available financing opportunities for these foreseen projects. So the log frame itself has three different types of indicators. On the one hand, we have impact indicators. That means those reflecting the adoption of real changes in the MSMEs. So targets associated with the number of MSMEs that have adopted or implemented concrete actions or the number of jobs created. So a real impact. The sources of verification are self-declarations and other validation documents that may be applicable. Then there are management, or we call them activity-related indicators. These could be indicators that are related to the number of MSMEs and people, individuals participating in activities, B2B events, or other conferences. So these do not directly have an impact, but are of course important for the whole rollout of the project. And here, sources of verification are lists of participants, training materials, and others. And then we have indicators that are specific to your own proposal, to your own project. Those indicators are not related in the end to the indicators of the Alle Invest Werde program, so to our global indicators, but are very particular to the individual project. So let me provide you with some concrete examples for the impact indicator. For example, the number of SMEs, we have here as an example, the number of MSMEs that have reduced drinking water consumption. So this is really an impact that has been created with support of the, reached with the support of the project. The source or means of verification is a self-declaration. This is a file that we created and that may be obtained from the monitoring and evaluation platform, which the projects are already using and which is in service of the partnership project for the monitoring and the steering of their projects. If necessary, other files can be added, such as the invoice of the consumption of drinking water, for example. Related to the management or the activity-related indicator, in reference to program indicator 2.1, if you remember, which is the number of audience reached in events to disseminate the experience and insights provided by the innovative project. An indicator could be the number of participants in the dissemination of good practices, for example. The source of means of verification is the list of participants, also available as format, and of course the dissemination materials that were used for this conference. And based on the experience on of the first call for proposal, certain indicators, targets, and means have been identified that are specific to each proposal and that are not related to the logical framework of the program, as mentioned earlier. And that's why they are also mentioned in the log frame, but they are mentioned separately. So we recommend to focus and limit yourself to the indicators at program level, as all individual indicators that you include will have to be monitored in the end, even if they do not contribute to the overall indicators. Of course, you're free to contribute to as many of the program indicators as possible, but remember that mandatory is to cover 3 out of the 5 in addition to the 2 specific objective indicators, as mentioned at the beginning. The planning tool that is set out in section 3.5 of the grant application form is the indicative action plan, with the aim of contributing to the evaluation of each proposal. So here it's important. Okay, you have your preliminary planning for the project. And in the first column, it's requested to mention the program indicator, as they were mentioned in the table at the beginning of the proposal and as you of the presentation, and as you find it in the guidelines, and the indicator assigned in the log frame of the proposal. So there should be a clear match between the action plan and the log frame to better identify which activity and which indicator are linked and what is the timing that you have foreseen. And the activity to be carried out, if possible, the name to be used in the dissemination. So this is this activity, the second column, and the targets to be achieved on a monthly basis. And finally, the annual total for year 1 and the following tables for year 2 and year 3, as you have a maximum potential duration of 27 months for your project. So by the way of example, 2 activities I mentioned here in the first line. Indicator 1.1 is the indicator at program level. It's the number of MSMEs participating in All-Invest Verde. And in this concrete proposal example, this indicator is linked to result 1.1 of your specific project. So together with the activity, you should detail the envisaged targets in each month and the sum of the annual target, meaning in this example, it's 100 MSMEs reached in month 3, 5, and 7. And in the end of year 1, you envisage a total of 300 MSMEs. And in the second line, it's the program indicator 2.1. It's the number of audience reached in events to disseminate the experience and insights provided by the innovative project. In this case, it's related to your specific result 1.2. It's called Circular Economy Seminar to disseminate best practices of beneficiary MSMEs. And you foresee in your specific project, for example, a seminar in month 11 with an estimated 400 participants. And so for year 1, your contribution to this indicator would be 400 for this year. And these are 2 examples. And as such, the log frame should be completed. So thanks a lot. I stop here and I hand over back again to Irene, who will continue with the budget information. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Let me show my screen again. I saw on the chat many questions. That's very interesting that you're curious about this call for proposal. So let's talk about the budget. I am going to explain some important aspects that you should take into account when preparing your budget. The budget is the Annex 3 and can be found on our website. It is an Excel file. You have to download it, fill it, and send it together with all the other documents that we request. This file consists of 6 sheets, 2 of which are a kind of general information that will allow you to understand how to complete the budget. In the other sheets, you will find the budget itself, justification, the expected source of funding, and the division between partners. I will explain you now about all of this information. So regarding eligible criteria, the first fact sheet you will find is the eligibility criteria. Costs must comply with the following criteria: to be carried out during the implementation of the action, are reasonable, justified, identifiable, and verifiable, respond to criteria of economy and optimization of resources, comply with the labor and tax legislation in force in each country, are necessary and allocated solely for the implementation of the project. On this sheet, you will also find a list of eligible and ineligible costs. For example, let's see some of them. Travel expenses of a staff taking part into the action. Those are example of eligible costs. The cost of the personnel assigned to the action, including gross salary and social charges payable by the employer, service, supplies, and labor contracts. Let's see some ineligible expenses. For example, in-kind contribution, larger scale machinery, equipment and supplies, losses due to exchange rate differences. The other fact sheet in the budget is the line detail. In this table, you will find a definition of the costs that can be included in each budget line. You will find it in this detail in the sheet 5. It is important to review this information with the detail of cost coverage in order to correctly allocate each expense to the appropriate line. I suggest you to read it carefully and then fill in the budget form. This is the sheet 1 called budget, where you will find all of the line that you have to fill in. Please note that this is an Excel that includes several comments that will guide you to complete this form. Be careful, this file has a lot of formulas, so please use this template and do not create a new one. Let us now look at some specific budget lines and items. For example, item 1 is human resources. You should only consider permanent staff on the payroll assigned to the project, whether they are working full or part-time in this line. For other people working in the project, you can include it in another line. We will see that later. So, okay, the first thing you have to do is describe the position, the institution, and the percentage of dedication in this file. For example, the position, which could be the project administrator, CCN, it's the name of the institution, let's say, and this project administrator is working at 62.5% in the level of dedication. So then you have to calculate the number of units per month. How do you do that? Let me show you. So we want to emphasize the calculation of the level of dedication. In this example, the duration of the program is 24 months. We assume a maximum of 22 working days per month and a project duration of 24 months. The program administrator will work a total of 15 months. That means 15 months by 22 days, equal to 330 days. Then, being 528 days, the total 330 days will represent the 62.5% of dedication. The unit is the month, as you can see here, and the number of units is calculated by multiplying the total number of months of the project, that means 24 months, by the percentage of dedication, that means 62.5%. So you will have 15 months. Please keep in mind that payment of performance or target achievement or bonuses are not eligible costs under this line. Let's see another line, which is per diem for missions and travel. So per diem, it's maximum flat rate at full cost per day to cover overnight stay away from the usual place of residence. That means that you can cover accommodation, food, and local transport, including transport to and from the airport, except for the trip arranged by SEQUA. I will later explain what those trips are. The daily per diem rate should not exceed the rates published by the European Commission as of February 2020. You will find the link to this table with these rates on the budget file too. Another item, the number 2, it's travel. Please note that only economy tourist class flight will be accepted with a baggage allowance of 23 kilos. In the line 2.3, local transport, travel by other means of transport than flights. Airport transport costs will be accepted for travel and from the airport to and from the airport when organized by SEQUA. And you can also allocate vehicle for the project activity. Petrol and other are recognized up to a maximum of 20 cents of euros per kilometer travel. In the travel and per diem section, there are some amount that we have placed that should not be removed. This amount corresponds to the budget allocated for events organized by SEQUA, in which you must participate as part of the program. The category 3 is equipment and supplies. This may include, for example, basic office furniture, laptops, beamer, printer, and so on. Please note that this will not be eligible expenses, large-scale machinery, equipment, and supplies. The category 4 is local office. This item may include office rental, office supplies, other services such as electricity, internet, telephone, etc. In the item 5, other costs and services are included. We can mention under this line 5.2, expenditure, audit and verification. An external auditor report. It's mandatory to apply for pre-financing, except the first one, of course, and also for reimbursement. Line 5.5, financial services should include bank charges and fees, and the cost of issuing a letter of guarantee in case of requesting an advance of funds. In line 5.6, conference, seminars, costs include room hire, equipment, catering, and also include the services of a speaker, for example. In the item 6, all external experts should be included under this heading. For example, national or international experts who are not on the payroll, studies, research, and services that are carried out by companies and not by consultants might be included also in this line. This sheet should indicate for each budget line the description of the expenditure to be incurred, which corresponds to a technical activity and result of the logical framework as explained by Frank earlier. So In this first column, you will find the budget lines and sublines, which are automatically copied from the sheet 1 on the budget, so you don't have to fill in. The following column will justify the detail of administrative and management costs that are not allocated to an activity. For example, human resources, travel organized by SEQA, office rent, etc. Then you have the results. Here, you will have to insert the number and name of the result, and according to the logical framework. So first you work in the logical framework and then you copy exactly the number of the name here. Then you have the activities that need to be exactly the same as in the logical framework. And then you have to include, like in this example, the explanation. For example, if you see in the budget line 1.2.3.1, and it's added per diem for Venezuela. Under the result awareness among SMEs in the packaging sector, you have the activity technical assistant to prototype circular packaging models. And you have that an expert per diem need to be allocated to be in Venezuela and hold the technical assistant for the local SMEs, or under the line 1.2.3.2 per diem in France, under the activity B2B event in sustainable packaging, you have this kind of an organization that need per diems to hold a B2B in France. And at the end, you can see the last column called calculation of estimated cost. And then you have the exactly calculation. Let's say 138 is the per diem per night in Venezuela. And if you do 3 times this rate, you will have 413 euros. And the second case is exactly the same. So finally, this is the planned source of funding. Here you have the contribution of the program. Secondly, you have your own contribution. The third one is the total amount of the project. And finally, you have our or the program contribution in the percentage. This is the division between partners. The program contribution should be distributed on this sheet between the leader and the project partners. A rule of this call is that the financial support must not exceed 300,000 euros per applicant for the whole duration of the program. Therefore, you are requested to enter the amount of the first call granted to your institution if applicable. So, thank you very much. For now, I will pass to Nicoletta again, and later on, I will show you quickly our website. Thank you very much.
Here I am. I hope you can see my screen. So now we are at the last part of today's presentation, which is a presentation and a summary, let's say, of the do's and don'ts and of the common mistake to avoid when applying. So in terms of application, we invite you to use the provided templates. You will find the templates on the All'Investverde website. Please use them. Do not add additional documentation that is not requested by the guidelines, and follow the instructions in those templates, meaning stick to the page margins, to the font, and to the size provided. Do not modify the templates. In terms of application documents, very important is for you to highlight the type of institution and the non-profit nature of the institution, both for the applicant and for each co-applicant. If the statutes are not in the language of the call, so the original language of the document is not English, Spanish, or Portuguese, please include a translation highlighting the non-for-profit nature of the organization. Submit the external audit reports together with copies of profit and loss financial statements and balance sheets for the last 3 years, and respect these the requested time frame. Additionally, detail the consortium experience. This is a very important point, so please highlight the project management experience of the applicant and co-applicant and any experience in EU-financed action. And additionally, provide also an information of your technical expertise. So the expertise that is related to the content of your proposed action. These should be evident, and also highlight those projects where the contribution was equal to the requested contribution in this particular call. In terms of budget, the file should be sent in Excel format or similar format. Do avoid the PDF format because this will not be accepted. When drafting your budget, there are several points to consider. Irene explained very well how to complete the budget, but let's summarize. So consider audit cost, any visibility costs that you will be incurring, and any costs that are related to the issuance of your financial guarantee. When calculating your HR costs for the action, also include social charges. So do not forget this point. We want to see, let's say, consistency among your proposals. So you have described your activities in your action, in your description of the action. We want those activities to be reflected in the budget as well. So explain each activities in the budget and provide a justification. Bear in mind that the SEQA contribution for each institution that are participating in the Alinvest program cannot overpass the 300,000 euro. The same happens in the logical framework, so the consistency element. Activities in the description of the action shall be reflected in the budget and find, let's say, targets in the logical framework. Bear in mind that most of the targets will be the number of SMEs, so avoid percentages, do not include percentages in the logical framework. Give to every specific indicator a name and also clear and quantifiable targets, and link those targets to obtainable and achievable sources and means of verification. Very important in the proposal to comment also on cross-cutting elements. You will see in the guidelines, we will, let's say, give special attention also to the involvement of women and youth in the proposal. The sustainability too plays an important role in the evaluation process, so do not forget this specific point. Please provide information on the financial sustainability of your project, meaning information of sources of funding that will be used to cover any running and maintenance cost in the future. And mention also the structures, the capacities, the expertise that will be mobilized to ensure that the results will be maintained after the end of the action. Also, we will see there's a consortium. We want to see what's the ownership of the consortium and their commitment after the end of the action. And comment to any element that will make your action replicable and scalable in the future. This is very important, so do not forget to highlight the potential impact on a larger scale of your project. Finally, any, let's say, good management of a proposal also has, let's say, a good system of controlling what's happening. So please describe the proposal internal monitoring system that you will adopt once you will implement the action. And very important, do not wait until the very last moment to upload all the documentation. You may incur technical failure, you will have a weak, for example, internet connection, so do not wait to the very last day and a few hours to submit all the documentation documents. So these are some tips from your side. So let's say, focus on doubts and questions. I've seen that in the chat, there's really a lot of questions for Frank and
Nicoletta,
Irene.
if you allow me, I would like to show quickly our website.
Sure.
So it could be clear where to find some information
yes.
we mentioned before. So this is our website here. Just give me a second. Just a second. I will share from another Windows, which is much better. I saw so many questions. That's true. It's very interesting. And I saw a couple of questions regarding the presentation. We're not going to share the PPT, indeed we are going to share the video. So you will find it in our website. Just give me a second because something happened and the website closed. And I have to open it again. Something that we didn't mention is that you have to apply in English, or I think you mentioned English, Portuguese, or Spanish. So our website is in those 3 languages. Just give me a second. Okay.
So while Irene, are you sharing, Irene? Okay, great.
Yes, sorry. Okay, so under component 1, you have the second call for proposal, which is here. And here you have all the documents you should, you should use to submit your project. So the application guidelines, grant award, etc. This is the Annex 3 I showed you before. As I mentioned, everything is in 3 languages. Below you have some resources, which are general information about the project, the program, and the proposals. And here on the right side, you have the kickoff event we did on May 23rd. And then you have the video of the workshops. It's because we're not sharing the PPTs, we are just sharing the videos. And this is the last one, workshop Uruguay. And then you have doubts. So here you have the email address where you have to send us the your question or your request for clarification. And here you have a form you have to fill in order to send us those questions or requests for clarification, and you will find the answers here. We're also always posting news on our social networks, so you will be notified if you follow us about the answers we are giving. And regarding the B2B match, here you can go for the B2B match platform. I mentioned that this is useful to find Latin American partners, because I suppose all of you are from European Union, but the platform, it works in both directions. So you can find a European Union or a Latin American institution. So now, Nicoletta, yes, you can continue.
Thank you, Irene. So we have really a lot of questions. I mean, as said, no, we will not share the presentation. The recording will be uploaded on the webpage that Irene just showed you. The question that we see, there are a lot. We will not comment on the composition of consortium. So we'll just take those general questions that could also be relevant for everybody. So I started, say, from the first one. We had a question related to the sector indicated in the European deforestation regulation. So they said, we are clear that those indicated in the European Deforestation Regulation will be the ones that the proposal should focus on. But the person wanted to know if it is possible also to incorporate other value chains.
Yeah. Thanks for the question. In the guidelines, we mentioned those commodities that fall under the deforestation regulation. But of course, you may propose for any other value chain if it falls in the scope of this call for proposals, and if you can reach the indicators such as outlined earlier, then there is no problem about that.
Thank you, Frank. A question related on organization that participated already in the first call. So if a Chilean legal organization, let's say eligible organization, has already participated in a granted project in the first call, is it eligible to apply in the second call too?
Yes, this was mentioned by Irene in her presentation. I think that you're also eligible if you were a leader in the first call. You may even be again a leader in the second call or a co-applicant. But it's very important to bear in mind that there is a maximum of 300,000 euro contribution for each, not only for each project, but also for each institution. So if you receive 200,000 in your budget as contribution in the first call for proposal, then you can now only apply up to a maximum of 100,000 in the new proposal project.
Okay. Now we have a question related to the participation of SMEs in the call. So a European SMEs developing tools for business process innovation with good contacts and potential and possible partners in Latin America can apply. It is not an NGO, but it has the know-how and expertise to work with companies in the green sector.
No, the SMEs cannot be part of the consortia. There is only the possibility to subcontract if there are specific services that you're applying, that the project is proposing, for example, or foreseeing. That such an institution can always be subcontracted, but this is only be done followed by the procurement rules. So it's not possible at this stage of proposing a project to identify the institution, to define it and to mention it and then to subcontract it later on. This is not possible.
Okay, Frank. Now a question on indicators. I think you said it already, but it's good also to, let's say, underline it. So consider the indicators. Shall the proposal cover all types of indicators?
Yeah, as mentioned, it could cover all the three types, depends on which indicators in the end from this priority list you choose. But these own indicators that you might have for your specific project, you could mention it, you could include them for the monitoring throughout the project implementation, but it is not necessary. The focus should be on the indicators that are contributing to the overall program indicators.
Okay. Another question on the preparation of the proposal. So is the preparation of the application an eligible expense?
No, clear answer, no.
Okay, very clear. Okay. They're also asking to understand better what is the role of the implementing consortium coordinated by SEGWA.
Yeah, I mentioned it only briefly. So in the end, we are 7 institutions in total, and we are doing also activities. We're implementing activities with our partners, especially the chambers in Latin America, with their members. They are also trying to improve processes, to perhaps introduce new services, and to contribute that their members are improving, such as it is foreseen in the partnership project. But the main bunch of work is, of course, the management of the project, the calls for proposal, the evaluation process, and the management afterwards, because in total we are talking, now we have 24 projects contracted. but we are talking in total about something between 60 and 70 projects in the end that have to be monitored and followed up throughout the whole project duration.
Okay. Another question is on the role and duties of European institution as co-applicant. If the main activity is performed in Latin America, can the European institution be in charge of developing know-how, resources, communication and dissemination tools or other expertise required by the Latin American organization, or should all be designed and performed by the LATAM institution?
No, I cannot give a concrete opinion on that, because in the end, it's up to you how you distribute the tasks and activities in your consortium. But of course, this project is in the frame of a know-how transfer between Europe and Latin America. And so if there is the possibility to transfer know-how within a concrete project to Latin American institutions, then of course, this is highly recommendable, but could be the other way around as well. It's not a one-way street, but in the end, it's up to you to define for each consortium partner the different activities. And as such, I assume you're looking for a partner that complies or that has the knowledge about different subjects that you do not have, and that's why you're looking for that specific partner and are forming your consortium as such.
Yeah, looking for complementarity, no?
Yes, exactly.
In terms of budget, again, they're asking if there is any restriction on subcontracting by the beneficiary applicants.
We did not put a specific figure in the guidelines, so subcontracting is possible, but of course the main part of the work should be done by your consortium. That's why the consortia are formed as such. So if you imagine you're an evaluator and you have a proposal with different institutions, and the biggest part of the work is done by external institutions that are going to be subcontracted, I would say that this is not the most beneficial setup of a project. No? It's always recommendable to do the great part above all the management with own staff from the own institution. But of course, there are always very specific activities that may be subcontracted, and each project is different, of course, but it should not be the biggest part that is going to be subcontracted.
Yeah. Maybe the last question, because I've seen the time, so maybe one last question. So it's on the funding. So who receives the funding? Is it only the leader? In that case, how the payment is made to the partner?
Yeah, the leading entity is the one with whom we conclude the contract in the end, and the funds are received by the leading entity. And how the distribution is then done in each consortium, this is also up to you. Normally, there are internal consortium contracts that are being established in order to clarify these issues, and of course, it has an impact if you're working against advance payment or reimbursement, but this is an internal issue that you have to clarify within your consortium. But the funds are, to be clear, the funds are coming from SEQA to the leading entity, to the accounts of the leading entity.
Okay. Okay, I think I've seen also another question on per diem, but I cannot find it anymore. But maybe we can just remind what it is, what the per diem is meant for. So it's a good reminder for the participants.
Yes, I guess the question was, let's say, according to our internal regulations, each person who travels must account for every single expenses like hotel, taxi, per diem, etc. That means that there is not per diem in the company, and therefore we should also render every single expense. How can we proceed? So just before all, keep in mind that companies cannot apply, which should be non-profit organizations. And the important point to keep in mind is that you cannot exceed the rate established by the European Commission in February 2020, which you will find on our website. Then we will figure it out to support you and find a way in the case you apply and you'll be awarded to solve this issue. But the important point is do not exceed this amount per day in the budget.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both Irene and Frank for your feedback. I think we are now at the closing of this information session. So maybe just a couple of reminders from my side. So once the recording will be uploaded on the website, you will receive an email with all the links to the recording, to the B2Match platform. I've seen already Irene also put the link directly on the chat, so you can have access already. Very important, if you have additional questions, please use the official form that is available on the second call webpage of the Alinvest Verde website and send it to the dedicated email address. As mentioned before, do not wait until the very last moment to submit your application. It would be really a pity to waste so much effort that you put in drafting the proposals. And also make use of the B2Match platform is there for you, so you can set up meetings and find partners or additional partners you may need. Thank you very much to Sequa, our project lead, for the fruitful cooperation, for supporting us in the organization of this information session. And lastly, also want to thank all potential applicants for your time and for your attendance. And I wish you success with the innovative proposal that you will present. Thank you very much and a nice day to all of you.
Thanks, Nicoletta, and good luck to all of you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. We're looking forward to receiving your ideas.